story I'm going to tell you is about my mother. My mother, Dorothy, when she was 75 years old, she was still living in our family home. My father had passed away about 15 years earlier. She was beginning to wonder if she could, or if she even wanted, to stay in her home. You see, it was beginning to become very difficult for her. She still had stairs to go up and down, and she wanted to keep the house up to the level that she was used to keeping up. And it was just getting hard, and when things broke down, it was really overwhelming. And we tried to help her as her kids, but a lot of us were still raising our own kids, and some of us didn't live close by. So eventually one day she gathered us all together and she said, you know, I think it's time to sell the family home and for me to downsize. And we said, okay. So she picked out a few senior places to go visit, and we went with her, of course. And she picked one out that was close to downtown because she loved going to the theater and the symphony, and she hadn't been able to do that for a long time. I will tell you, once she picked out that place, it made everything so much easier because she got excited to move. She came home, decided what she was going to take, and she let the rest of us pick a few things out for ourselves, and we decided where the rest was going to go. You know, on the day of the movers came in, and they packed up all of her stuff, and they took it down to her new home, and they unpacked it for her, and they even put the pictures on the wall so that when she slept there that night, she felt like she had been there for a while. Next thing we did is we got the home ready to put it on the market. Once it was all cleared out, we fixed the defects, had it painted, carpets cleaned, windows cleaned, and then we hired a staging company to bring their own furniture in to stage it so it looked like somebody was living there. And that way, my mom was able to get the most money for her home. You know what was so fun? I walk around a lot, and I'm going to go right in front of this, I know. You know what was so fun about this whole project that we did with my mom was to see the change in my mom when she had moved. She became excited to live again. She became a leader in her church. She started doing charity work. She even started dating. It was so fun to see. And it was so fun for us, of her daughters, because she picked up an old habit of hers that she had long ago put on the shelf while she was raising us, and that was drawing and creating women's clothing. So it was really fun to see her get back into that. The next story is my mother-in-law. Now my mother-in-law, Judy, is 85 years young, and she is still with us, and we are so grateful that she is here. She has lived in her house for 44 years. Her husband passed away about 6 years ago. And Judy is very active. She has a one-level, 3-bedroom home, and she has a gardener, a pool person, and a cleaning crew come in to her home every week so she can keep it up to the level that she's used to. And she's still driving and getting around, and she's still taking classes at the local university, and she plays mahjong and bridge every week. And you know, only she and one other of her friends are still living in their home. The rest of them have decided to downsize, and they're living either in condos or in some sort of senior living facility. Now, Judy wants to stay in her home as long as possible, and we want her to do that. But she knows that if and when she's not able to take care of herself physically or take care of the home, she knows where she wants to go and what she wants to take. And it's because of these two wonderful women in my life that I put this event together. And also because in my business, I get asked by seniors all the time, should I go? Where should I go? What do I do with all my stuff? And where do I begin? Hence the name of our seminar today, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And my hope when you leave here today is that you maybe answer some questions for yourselves about your home, and that you leave feeling empowered and energized, wanting to make those decisions for yourself, whether it's today or whether it's in the future. You know, I know leaving your home can be really hard. If you think about it, you've lived in your home 30, 40, 50 years. You've raised your kids. You've had parties. You've had births. You've had weddings. You've had graduations. You've done everything in your home, right? But you know, When you leave that home, you're not leaving the memories. You're just leaving a structure of a home. Remember the saying, home is where your heart is? Well, home is where you are. These are some of the questions that the seniors ask me all the time. You know, maybe you've asked yourself some of them, like, why should I go? Can I take my pets? What do I do with all of my stuff? Or maybe, where do I begin? I'll tell you, there was a recent survey done with seniors, and they asked these seniors 3 questions because they wanted to kind of gauge their feelings on moving. The first question they asked him is, what held you back from answering those questions that we were just discussing? Well, as you can see, the number 1 was fear of the unknown. Number 2 was not being able to take their pets. Number 3, of course, the financial concerns. Can I afford to do it? Then there's the downsizing and emotional fear. Am I making the right decision? The second question they were asked, what is the number 1 reason why you would move? Well, the first was health issues. How's your health? What if you fall? Do you have stairs you're still trying to get up and down? Do you live near your doctors or your family? These are all things that we need to think about. The second was maintaining a home. How's your home doing? Is it deteriorating? Are you able to keep it up? You know, a lot of seniors are worried whether they can keep their house up so that they will get the value if and when it is time to leave. And that's something to think about. It's not just about making sure our homes are secure so that we're not burglarized. But with seniors, it's also about the internet fraud and the phone scams that are going on. And I'm sure you know, seniors are the target. So those are things to consider. The third question they asked the seniors is, of the people that you have known, that have moved to a community, are they happy they made the move? Are they unhappy that they made the move? Or maybe they don't have an opinion. Well, as you can see, overwhelmingly, they're happy that they made the move. You know, you might ask yourself, you know, what happens if I don't make a decision? Well, it kind of leaves you in limbo, doesn't it? You've got 1 foot in your home, you've got 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, never answering those questions. Kind of reminds me of that old song, Doing the Hokey Pokey. It's not a very good feeling, is it? You know, and then there comes the, I'm not making a decision. I'm going to stay in my home until I have to leave. Well, you know, what if you have a health change? And what if all of a sudden you're in the hospital and you have to make a decision? And because you didn't plan ahead and decide where you wanted to go, all of a sudden you have a sense of urgency. You have to find a place immediately. And I'll tell you, I've seen this happen a lot of times, and it leads to a lot of unhappiness and sadness. And heaven forbid, if something happens to you and you're not able to make the decision, and then our children have to jump in, and they have to make the decision for us. And I don't know about you, but I don't think my children would pick where I wanted to go. You know, so it's always good to know where you're going to go, whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow. Just let your children know what you want to do. As it says up here, you know, making the decision really is the best medicine for yourself. And it gives us all peace of mind. You know, you might ask, why now? Why not now? Well, let me tell you a little bit about the state of the market in this area. You know, we live in a beautiful area and lots of people want to live here. And we still have lots of buyers and we don't have enough inventory. You know, the housing costs in this area have exceeded those back in 2008. We're really looking good. And we still have buyers, even though the interest rates are creeping up a little bit. So I'll tell you what we're seeing. We're not seeing as many buyers. There's still a lot of buyers, but there's not as many. And where there used to be 8 or 10 offers on a home and it would sell in a week, we're seeing that there's 1 or 2 offers on the home, and we're going back to the old days, 10 years ago, when homes were on the market for 45 to 60 days. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, and I certainly don't know what's going to happen in the real estate market, but things are changing. There's a little change in the wind, I feel, out there. You know, you can't do this alone. I couldn't do it alone. That's why I'm doing this. I want to be a resource and an advocate for you. I want to help you decide what you want to do and refer you to people that I know who can help you. And a lot of them you will meet here today, and I have a lot more. So you say, okay, I'm here. I'm open. Let's see what this looks like. Well, the first question is, where do I begin? Well, you know, the first thing, like my mother, is to where will you go? And I have invited Andrea Daniels from Heartlight to speak to us today, and she's going to talk to you about various places to move and give you some options. You know, it's not all about a nursing home anymore, or an old folks home. They're kind of like hotels. They're really, really nice. So she'll speak to you in a little bit. The next thing you want to do is who will help. Besides family, there's a lot of organizations out there for seniors who want to help you. You just need to know about them and ask. And then what do you do with all of your stuff? Well, downsizing is a difficult thing, I know. You know, most of the homes that I sell don't look like this, but they still have lots and lots of treasures in them. You know, if you're older than the baby boomers, Tom Brokaw coined you as the greatest generation. And you know what? You are the greatest generation. And you are also the greatest savers. And I will tell you, downsizing and decluttering can hold a family back for years. You know, what does mom and dad take? What do the kids get? Where does the rest of it go? Well, we have downsizing and decluttering companies that are here to help, and I've seen them do a home like this in 1 or 2 weeks. They work very quickly, but they work methodically and carefully so that you feel good every step of the way. Basically, there's 3 ways to sell your home. First one is as is. Basically, you don't want to fix anything up. You just decide on the price, and we put it on the market, and away you go. You know, we had a woman down in Huntington Beach last year that did just this thing. Her husband had died many years ago, and she really hadn't been able to or wanted to keep the house up. So when it was time for her to leave, she didn't want to put any money into it, and so we just put it on the market. And the homes that we sell like this usually go to flippers or investors. It's usually pennies on the market, but in this market is still a lot of money. The second way to do it is to fix the defects, and this is what most people do. They'll paint a room or two, they may be living in it, and they may not be living in it, and they clean it all up and get it ready to put on the market. You know, we have a home in Redondo Beach that we've been working on that's on the market now. And we had our handyman come in, and he cleaned up the floors, and he painted the home, and he cleaned up the garden, and power washed the driveway, and on, and then we put it on the market. The third way is to stage your home, and this is what my mother did, and that's really hiring a staging company. Usually the home is vacant, and they come in with their furniture, and the reason why they do this, or the reason why you would want to hire them, is just because it helps the buyers imagine what the home would look like with their furniture in it. And a lot of times that can get you more for your money. You know, let me tell you about the process and how we work. As a senior real estate specialist, we are trained in the challenges that seniors face with the emotional and financial issues that they have to go through. What separates me and my team from the other realtors out there is that we care about you. We want to help you. We want to be there every step of the way. You know, there's no 2 families that are alike in this situation, and we know that. So we sit down with you, we listen, and we understand what you're going through, and then we'll put a timeline together. And we start with when you want to be in your home, and we work backwards. That way you know every step of the way what you need to have done so that you can move into your home when you want to. And then you decide where you want. Well, we help you, actually, we help you for next point is your homework. And we'll help you figure that out in today's market, whenever that day is. And then the next thing is where are you going to move? And then the next thing is downsizing. And then as you continue on the process, it's getting your home ready to sell. And it really depends on how you want to sell it and how we help you, and we can help you with that decision, whether you're going to sell it as is that I talked about, or maybe you're going to fix some of the defects, or maybe you're going to stage it. Either way, we can help you with that process. We want your home to look its very best when we put it on the market. And then the next thing we do is we market it. And I'll tell you, a lot of the seniors that we work with, they don't want a sign in their yard or a lockbox on their door, because they don't want people that they don't know knocking on their door and going, "Can we see your home?" You know, seniors don't want that. And that's perfectly fine with us. We can be there at every showing that you have, and so that you feel comfortable. And also, a lot of seniors don't want to leave their homes during this showing. Maybe it's hard for them to get out. That's okay. We can work with that too. Whatever works for you. And then, of course, last but not least is the day that you move, and we'll be there. We'll say goodbye to you. We'll make sure everything is going smoothly, and that you're happy with your move and where you're going. You know, you've earned this lifestyle. You've worked hard all of your lives. I will tell you what I hear from seniors who have decided to downsize and move. They tell me, you know what, there's such a weight that has been lifted off of my shoulders. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe the things I'm starting to do again. Or, you know, I wish I had done this sooner. You know, I'm just about getting to the end, and I'm going to talk to you about what's in the gift bag that you're going to get. But at the very beginning, I forgot to tell you about our next speaker. And our next speaker is Bunni Dybnis. And she's with LivHOME, and she also has a company called Aging Life Matters. And she's going to talk to you about why we as seniors procrastinate and why we don't answer some of those questions. So she will be our next speaker. But with that being said, let me tell you what's in your gift bag today. This is the bag that you're all going to get to take home. You know what? I'll put this up here. So I'm not breathing into it. So, when you leave here today, you probably all can hear me anyway. I've got a pretty loud mouth. Anyway, when you leave here today, you're each going to get one of these books. One of them is called Moving in the Right Direction, and the next one is called Guiding Our Parents in the Right Direction. They were written by a good friend of mine. He's a realtor back in Milwaukee, and he's been helping families for over 30 years. And the books are wonderful. They're short reads. They're great chapters. They answer more questions, and they bring up more questions than even I was able to bring up today. They're short chapters, fun, lots of stories, lots of experiences. I hope you enjoy reading them. And then you're going to get a packet from us. Oh, I better stay here. You can get a packet from us that tells you a little bit more about what we do to help you in the move. There's called, Are You Puzzled About Moving? And it will show you some of the things that we've talked about today and how we help our seniors move. The next one, the step-by-step process of what we help you with and what we do for you as we move forward with your home. And then, as we continue on, there's some testimonials in here from past clients, seniors that we have helped. And then at the end, there's a couple of pages of resource people in different industries that we partner with. These are all people that we know from fiduciaries, from estate planning attorneys, from financial advisors, and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps you in making your decision. And then there's a sheet in here about Prop 5. I don't know if you've heard about Prop 5, but you can read about it. And then I know Bunni Dybnis has a packet from LivHOME that she's put in the packet. And then there's something from SCAN. Mary Malone White is here from SCAN, and so there's some information in her. She also has some information back in the back. So I hope you pick it up. And then there's Heartlight. Andrea Daniels has got some little tissues and information there too. And then a financial advisor, Angela Part-Sheldon, she's in the back. And here's a brochure on what she does for seniors and helps them. So lots of fun little goodies in there for you. All right, I'm just about done. Before I leave you, there is something I want to read to you. And it's a very special story. It's a very short story. But it means a lot to me, and I hope it resonates with you. A 92-year-old, petite, well-poised, and proud lady who is fully dressed each morning by 8 o'clock with her hair fashionably coiffed and makeup perfectly applied, even though she's legally blind. She moved to a senior community today because her husband of 70 years had passed away recently. After many hours of waiting patiently in the lobby of her new home, she smiled sweetly when told her room was ready. As she maneuvered her walker to the elevator, I provided a visual description of her tiny room, including the eyelet sheets that had been hung on her window. She said, "Oh, I love it." I stated, "Oh, wait, you haven't seen it yet." And she said, "That doesn't have anything to do with it. Happiness is something you decide on ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not doesn't depend on how the future furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind. I already decided to love it. It's a decision I make every morning when I wake up. I have a choice. I can spend the day in bed recounting the difficulty I have with the parts of my body that no longer work, or get out of bed and be thankful for the ones that do. Each day is a gift. And as long as my eyes open, I'll focus on the new day and all the happy memories I've stored away just for this time in my life." She went on to explain, "Old age is like a bank account. You withdraw from what you put in. So my advice," she said, "would be for you to deposit a lot of happiness in your bank account." And she went on to say, "Thank you for your part in filling my memory bank I'm still depositing." And with a smile, she said, "Remember the 5 simple rules to be happy. Free your heart from hatred, free your mind from worries, live simply, give more, and expect less." Thank you all for being here.
So, as we get ready to introduce our next speaker to you, I want to tell you a couple of things. Is that when you do call us for any of your real estate consultations, remember that there's always no charge for that, and sometimes it's not in our client's best interest for them to move, and we always have that on the table as an option. We also work with a lot of notices of default and foreclosures, and on occasion sometimes someone who is downsizing and moving from their family home wants to leave that home to children, or have it in a trust, and then sometimes in that case it's better for them to rent the property and have a property manager run it for them and their children while they move on with whatever phase of transition the next step is for them. So one of the reasons, and I have myself on a timer, the alarm's going to go off and I'll introduce Bunni, but one of the other reasons that we're here, Jennifer was telling a story, recently I had Cranky Jim, we just call him Cranky Jim, and Jim was 96 years old and a World War II veteran, had every right to be cranky, and he was moving, and he called me and said, "I need to talk to you," and I said, "Okay," and he said, "I need to sell my house, I want to put it in the MLS, I don't want to talk to any other realtors, and I just want to put it in the MLS, and I was told to call you." And the reason I was called is because I was president of the Association of Realtors at the time. So I said, "Jim, why don't you put your house in the MLS? Why haven't you hired a realtor?" And he said, I don't like them. I don't want to talk to them. I've interviewed 16 agents, and I just want to put my house in the MLS, and they won't do that for me. And I said, well, then I'm going to come to your house. I need 12 minutes of your time. I want to bring you something. And we made an appointment, and I went to see Cranky Jim, who we're now great friends. But I had a copy of the MLS rules with me, 13 pages. And I said, and I sat down, and sure enough, Cranky Jim had interviewed 16 agents. Lots of them had left their whole presentation and contracts there. And when I spoke to him, I said, I have a question for you. And he said, I don't want to waste my time. Are you just going to put my house in MLS or not? And I said, well, I don't understand, you know, if you've interviewed 16 agents, why you haven't hired someone. And he said, they want me to sign a listing agreement. I'm not going to sign a listing agreement. And they told me I can't put it into the MLS without a listing agreement. And I said, well, you certainly can. And I'm not telling you that my colleagues lied to you. I'm telling you that they may not know. There is a one-page document you can sign that's called a commission agreement. The MLS has rules, and we cannot put a property into the multiple listing service without one of these two contracts signed. And you can sign the one-page commission agreement that if I bring you a buyer, you sell your home, you'll pay us the commission, or you can pay that listing agreement. Sign that listing agreement. And he said, all right, I'll sign the one-page document. And I said, I have a question for you, Jim. Why won't you sign the listing agreement? Because the language that's in there protects you more than it does me. It tells you what my standards of practice and my ethics are, what my broker's responsibilities are. And he said, I don't see that well, I can't read it. And I don't know what I'm signing. And I said, well, it's going to protect you more than it is me, and I will read you the whole thing, all 12 pages. And if you'll sign those, then we can get your house on the market. But if you want to hire one of these other realtors, I said, and don't hire this one. I handed him a package because that package had a power of attorney in the paperwork. And I said, so don't hire this one, but hire whoever you want to, but sign the listing agreement and not the one-page document. So he called me back the next day and said he wanted to sign and would I come over. And I said, no, I'm going to wait till tomorrow when your caregiver's there. Oh, back to my story. The document that I took to him, multiple listing rules, I handed to him. And I said, the next time an agent tells you that they can't put it into the MLS unless you sign a listing agreement, you just tell them you have the multiple listing rules right here. I brought them to you, and that's not necessarily the case. And he said, I can't read all that. I said, they don't know that. Just tell them you got the multiple listing service rules right here, and you're not signing a listing agreement. So when he wanted me to come sign the listing agreement, and I refused to go until the day that his caregiver was there, because I said, there's my timer. I said, you don't know if what I'm reading to you is what's on these papers or not, so I want somebody else here to go along with it. But he was moving to Ohio because he grew up there. He'd not been there since 1952. But his buddy Bob lived there, and Bob lived in assisted living, and so he was selling his house in Redondo Beach, and he was moving back to Ohio, and I asked him what the attraction was moving back to Bob, and he said, Bob has a car. So now I'm worried about him a lot, but there's more to that story, but my time is up too. So I'm going to introduce Bunni Dybnis to you guys. Jennifer mentioned Bunni and her areas of expertise. Bunni brings 35 years of professional experience with aging and vulnerable adults and their families to her role as Director of Professional Services of LivHOME and President of Aging Life Matters. As a licensed marriage family therapist, certified care manager, trained mediator probably. Mediator. And, thanatologist. She is an advisor, professional liaison, spokesperson, educator, supervisor, and provides private consultations, family conflict resolution, and expert witness testimony. Bunni is considered a national leader and spokesperson for her profession, and as well recognized for her involvement in the aging community of Los Angeles. So Bunni, where are you? Come on up. I also want to invite anyone who did not have your breakfast yet to please, we're casual here, so please have some pastries, have some yogurt, get some coffee. We're casual, so go hang out with the food.
Boy, I've been here a long time. What I'd like to first mention is thanks to these fine ladies, because I don't have to disagree with anything they say. They were spot on. You did your homework, and I have a lot of experience in doing this kind of thing. I'd like to get to know you guys a little bit. How many are you here for someone else that you're concerned with that maybe is considering moving, downsizing, or one of these things? Nobody. How many are here because in the future you say, maybe I should know something. I'm a good planner and I want to know what's out there, so in case I ever decide. Would you raise your hands just so I can see? You too. And finally, how many of you have immediate need that this is going to happen sooner or later and you have to make a decision within the next month or 2 months? So that is terrific. I have to find out, how do I use this? Oh. Just click on it, right? Technology. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start. Jennifer talked about her in-laws and her parents, but I'm going to talk about me and what brought me here. And I have, in my packet, there's a little article on transition and the trauma that I went through, interesting enough. So this is my history of home buying in Los Angeles. I was born and raised on the west side. I'm only starting when I first got married, and we moved into a very cute little, can you hear? Am I okay now? Yeah. So we moved into this cute little Hansel and Gretel house, and it was adorable and all that. My husband had lived there before, and then we had my first son, Josh. And Hansel and Gretel apparently did not have kids because there was not room for Josh to be part of this family, and more on the way. So then we moved to our next house, which is a big family house, swimming pool, 5 bedrooms, big backyard, big entertaining space, but made perfectly for kids. And we had many years of birthday parties and family dinners and holiday celebrations. It was a great house. Then my last son, Ari, went away to college. And 2 weeks after he went away to DC, I called and said, Ari, remember that house you were born and raised in? It's no more there. We bought a new house. And we bought, my husband and I bought an empty nester, our dream house. We decided we were going to be in the canyons because it's calm there, and we had a huge backyard. We could entertain. Any of you are UCLA Bruins, I have annual activities in my backyard and neighborhood watch and all these kinds of things, and it was great for entertaining. Great, we both had Jack and Jill bedrooms that turned into Jack and Jill studies, and it was terrific. All that changed. My husband at a young age fell off a roof and sustained severe traumatic brain injury and died 15 months later. So now I'm in this very large house with a large backyard, a very big honey-do list, because the reason my husband was on a roof is because he was on the roof all the time. You know, he did all those kind of things. So I relied on my sons, my great handyman, my gardener, my friends and neighbors, and I just couldn't move. It was, but all of a sudden this ideal, wonderful house. And if anybody's been north of Sunset on the 405, and west of the 405, you can't get out of there after 2:30. So, but it took me 5 years, and last year, I very methodically, because I do plan ahead, decided it was time to downsize for me. And I looked at condos, and I looked at houses, and I still socialize. I still have kids. I'm hoping for grandkids one day. But I knew I wanted to be east of the 405. I knew I wanted a 1-story house, and I knew I wanted a lot of other things. So it took me a move-in ready house. So it took me a year to find, and I had all my funding so I could buy first and sell later, and all those kind of things, the tax implications, capital gains, all those kind of stuff I had worked out. And I said, this should be a breeze. And yes, I go, so I made the move, and of course things don't happen the way they should. That if anybody sells houses, the contingencies were met the day before the escrow closed, so I had to be out in 4 days, and I was unpacking and doing all this kind of stuff. And I was traumatized. Here I'm moving to, it was a perfect house for me, the best house, the ideal location. One of my closest friends lives around the block, all these kinds of things, and it was traumatic. So I go, wait a second, if it's so hard for me, and I know as a professional, I'm an aging life care manager, so I know what happens in the trauma that we have with older adults when they move in very, very different circumstances than I do. They don't plan, there's financial issues, all these kind of things that I didn't have. So that started my journey. So when Jennifer said, you want to speak on should I, should I stay or should I go? I said, oh my God, you're like a therapist. I get to come here and tell you my woes. So a little bit about that, and I think pay attention if you have a copy or any articles on Jennifer's slide. She really makes a lot of sense for planning ahead, and that's kind of the issues we're dealing with. And I, of course, I thought my logo, I have a logo on my new business. It's like Zen because I believe in balance and figuring it out. But I'm going to change it to an iceberg because what I find is the things that you have on top, those are just the things that are on paper. It's all those stuff underneath it, all those dysfunctional families and all the elder abuse and all the other kinds of stuff and all the confusion, internal confusion that I had that other people do. So that's where we're going to begin. So there's lots of reasons why people move. Listen, as Jennifer said, there's some really good reasons to move. I had good reasons to move. It made all the sense in the world to me. People have empty nests. People move down. They want to downsize. They want to live in urban areas. They want to socialize more. They were friends with all their neighbors, but all of a sudden their neighbors are busy working, 40 years younger, and the church they belong to, they're strangers now, and all those kinds of things. So there's some really, really good reasons to move. There's some other reasons that people are just smart and practical, that they know it doesn't, as much as they love their house and they love going out in their garden, for them it just doesn't make sense anymore. You know, it's too large. They have all these criteria. Their kids live in the San Fernando Valley. They live in the South Bay. You might as well live in New York, right? So lots of good reasons, and a lot of it has to do, like me, a little prolonged, but the death of a spouse, changes in lifestyle, retirement, changes in where things just get harder, living in a two-story house. And I was living in a two-story house. And as you aged, your short-term memory is not as good as it used to be. And I can't tell you how many times it was good exercise, but running up and down those stairs because I forget just one thing. And I'd forget my keys, and then I'd forget the paper I needed. So lots of reasons why people move. And a lot of them, and these are the people that have probably a lot of you sitting down there. It's not all that black and it's not all white. It goes to that Zen. So it's not all perfect. I tell everybody, and some of these ladies have been over because I guest sell company all the time. I love my new house, but it's not perfect. I miss my book club and my Maj games on the other side of the 405, and those ladies refuse to come to my house. It's an hour and 15 minutes to go 4 miles. So it's not, it really, and I think be aware of that, because if you're waiting for the perfect time, I'll talk to you about the not so perfect times, but there isn't 100%. So take your time and know that. And then of course, there are people, and this is in my world where we get more and more people, is people that really don't have the judgment. They're really not safe at home. They either refuse to get help in the house, or they can't afford the help in the house, and they're forced to. Their kids either pressure them, or many times, or sometimes when there's no other option, and they absolutely are calling the police department every day, and we have had those. There's some really good, legally they have to move through conservatorships and all those kinds of things. Oops. Oh, there you go. That had to be fast, right? And again, lots of things, as I told you, to consider, and these are some of the issues that we go to. And really, a lot of it comes down to your preferences and your values. So if you value privacy and you really don't like people very much, and you're like some of the engineers I see, they're happy in their garage, they're doing handiwork, they're happy in their gardens, they're happy on their computers, and they're horrified to sit at a table like this with a bunch of ladies talking away. Very, very different than somebody very extroverted and loves the book clubs and the pan games and all the other kinds of things that senior living has to offer. So those are preferences. Values are much more embedded. So if you value family and home and staying in place, and your kids all live near, and that's reclusive, that's very, very different than a preference for a red room or a green room. So very different, and it's a longer conversation than this. But then there are, and this is why it is important to plan ahead, and this is where I do this individual consultations with people usually in their 60s and 70s and don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. So maybe something's happening, maybe not. They know what's going to be the next step. So really important to understand the finances. Medicare does not pay for long-term care. That means they don't pay for assisted living. That means they don't pay for home care in the house, unless under very, very specific circumstances. People still don't know that. They call and said, "Oh, I have Medicare, but I have Blue Shield too. So can we pay, will you take care of our care?" That's not how it works. Long-term care insurance, Veterans Assistance Program, and a few other programs have it, but in most part, this is private pay. So, I'm sorry, yeah. Or if you really don't have money, then there's in-home supportive services for the truly low income. So we have to look at all these kinds of things. People buy these townhouses that are 3-story and they're really not accessible, and all these kinds of things. So there's tons of reasons. I could go around this room and probably I'd have 15 different reasons why people are moving. So be aware, your next door neighbor might not be the same person as you. They may have different needs. They say, "Oh, my mom absolutely," their friend Bob may be in a great facility, assisted living that he loves, but Bob has dementia and you don't, or you have dementia and he doesn't. So one size does not fit all, and Andrea will talk about some of that. So this is really important. In my packet, you will get the 43 items that cause stress. So what we have found, and this has been around for years since I was in college, this is a stress test to look. We know that too much change at the same time is very bad for your health. We know if you have more than 150 points, you are really 50% chance of getting sick, changing health, getting sick in the next year. If you're over 300 points, there's an 80% chance. So this is where, and if you look at this, I don't know if you can see too much, change of residence is only 20 points. And that's why really I had no problem with my first 3 houses I moved in whatsoever, because I didn't have any baggage with those. They were good move. I was young, energetic, and I don't even remember the trauma of moving at all. It's only 20 points. But if you look at the death of a spouse, that's 100 points. So you don't have a lot of leeway there. So if people are moving, you have got to be aware of stress. If you're making any significant changes and there's a choice, be careful. Look at this. Look for your parents. Look for yourself. Look for those friends, others. What else is going on? You know, that glass that's half full and you keep adding and adding and adding, and eventually it spills over. That's what happens with stress. So this is probably the most important thing I can give you if my time is up. I don't know when my time is up. Okay, tell me fine. But this is really important. Take a look at that stress page. Keep it with you. It says a year, but for older adults, it's a way different. There's other numbers because there's so many things. It may be multiple losses, and multiple illnesses, and all those kinds of things going on at the same time. Oops. Computers are a big stressor. They don't have it on the list. We knew it a new list. Okay, so they've even named this. So for anybody, it is a symptom. There's actually symptoms associated in my world with any kind of move. And that could be a move just because, and I'm sure we get them all the time, people that fall, break a hip, go into a hospital, then have to go to rehab, and then they're coming home, and they're going to be rehab. You know, hip takes whatever it takes to heal, and they do heal. Same thing can be true for stroke. Is that better? Yeah, same thing can be true for strokes and things like that. So you have to be aware, short term, just be aware that this can occur at any time, or moves. And again, the more other stresses, the more trauma. The more it's against somebody's will, the more trauma, or if they don't have a say in it. So we're going to talk about some of what happens, and then finally on my last slide, that's why I need 5 minutes, is what we can do. So we end on a happy note.
You have 12 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. I can tell you the story of my mother in real estate after that. Okay, so what is this transition trauma, and how do we spot it? And it really is essential. It can be the difference between life and death. It's not something that that you make a fashion faux pas and wear white shoes after Labor Day. This is serious stuff. So if we look at it, if staffs are aware in facilities, if family aware, if neighbors are aware, if churches are aware, look for changes. And those changes can be in mood. People get sadder. They're supposed to be happy in that wonderful new condo, or I was supposed to be happy, and say other things happen, and they're not. Not that you can't take care of it, but be aware of it. Again, the anxiety, when it's extreme, when it changes, somebody that's always nervous is going to be nervous. Somebody that's not, it's something called parallel process to me in my world, and this is a way to spot these things or prevent a lot of this from happening. We can look at every one of you, and I learned this when I was working with thanatology, by the way, is death. The Thanatos is the god of death, another cheery subject. But I've spent many, many years working with the terminally ill, and I found, except for the unique situations that exist, people really live, they're consistent and they die the way they live. And the same thing goes for moves. If somebody, I know a lot of people that's family were in military. Some people thrived on those moves and they loved reinventing themselves, that every time they went to a new school. Other people were horrified. So understand yourself if you're moving, or the person that you're moving. How do they respond to stress and change? That has a lot to do with this. So then we've got the behavioral changes, in particular with people with dementia. You get the acting out, the hitting people with canes, the swearing at people, the calling the police, the refusing to do things, and all those kind of things. And then finally there's the physical changes. So if you see any of these changes, you get to a doctor, you get to a therapist, you get to somebody that can evaluate this to treat it. So now we're going to talk about what you do with this. The truth is, a lot of people, you all mean well here, I know you do, but at least half of you, and probably more, are going to wait till there's a crisis to make any change. So we need to be dealing with this, and we need to understand it. So what can we do to prevent it, or at least reduce it? And sometimes it's going to be just simply reducing it, but that can be the difference between life and death, or being clinically depressed your whole life, or a little nostalgic for your pretty backyard. So again, doing what you do, you start planning, and that means not only where you're going to live and how you're going to move it, but the affordability of it, and if and it's looking at financial planning and what it actually costs and all these kinds of things. Identify, as I said, changes that other changes that have taken place. And this is where, I'm going to push back the clock about 30 years. My dad died when he was 64 of leukemia, very suddenly in 3 weeks. He was in the hospital. He had been working. He thought he had the flu. It was acute myalgic leukemia, and he died within 3 weeks. And my mom was quite young, and they lived in a house. And the first thing she wanted to do was sell the house. She was in real estate too, by the way. And she cheered it wasn't that big of a house, but it was it creaks and you get scared, you hear people. She didn't like dogs, so she didn't want that. And her friend Jeanette stayed with her for a month. And after that, she goes, thank God I didn't sell my house. 5 years later, when she was older and the same issues that people have with houses, she decided it's time to move. She was remarried by then, so you'd think she'd like the house more, but she moved into a condo, and she said, I've never liked anything better in my life. I can call downstairs. It was one of those full service kind of things, and people came up and fixed things. She went away. She didn't have to worry about things. So that was timing. Again, I said she was in real estate. Esther Friedman, who is a real person, called my mom while she was my mom worked till she was 75. So called my mom, same thing. She had been widowed and she wanted to move within the last 3 or 4 months. And my mom said, call somebody else, I'm not gonna sell it for you. Call me back in 6 months. If you still wanna move, I'll be happy to do it. And Esther was a little appalled, but she wanted what she couldn't have. So she waited, became lifelong friends with my mom, never moved. But my mom got the sale of her daughter's 2 houses when they moved. So, good deeds do go unpunished sometimes. So, anyways, it was a lesson that I learned, and I know that from bereavement and change and all that. So, really important. And understanding normal grief. And there's that, by the way, is Jane Fonda, and all this is the shock, the anger, and denial of the reality of the situation. And some people think just because they feel they're 90 and they feel they're young and they don't want to be around old people. And Andrea, we can talk about that, how many 90-year-olds go and said, I'm not going to be around any old people, I'm not old.
You're taking my whole presentation.
Okay, I won't tell you any more about that. And again, the abrupt and multiple transfers. So do your homework. There's people in the community that can help you. If it's complicated, I do it as a consultant. If you know what you want, and Andrea can help. She's a pro. There's people all over the country like her. So really, really important. Strive for the most agreement possible. Strive for the most agreement possible. You know, if there's one of a couple wants to move and the other one, it really is important to try to work it out. Or if kids are fighting over it, where's mom going to move? Should she move into a facility? Should she move in with them? Should she stay in place? As much that we can get along with that and really work on consensus, the easier it becomes. There's just one more stress. And believe me, I see many families and those that usually, and this is something that it's sort of a mediation trick that we can all use. If you put down all your goals and you think you have 3 siblings and they all disagree, if you put all the goals down, generally people adore their parents. Generally they're mindful of finances, some maybe not. Usually about 80% of what they want, they agree on. They want to be safe, they want to be engaged, all these things. So you only deal with the 20% that needs changing, and you stop repeating the things you agree on. And I think people waste so much time fighting over everything when it usually is just a little thing and it can be resolved. So really important to have an agreement when you can, and then choose the appropriate settings. You know, again, Andrea, I hate to keep coming, I know you don't mind, but coming back. But you know, if you know you want to be in a senior facility, there are senior move managers like Andrea that, not me, that's Regina. There are placement people that can help you find the right place. If you don't know where you're going to move, and you need that's much broader, whether it has to be a nursing home, whether you want to move into some like Sun City and those kind of senior communities, whether it's a Medicare waiver program, all those kind of things. And it goes much deeper and you have to deal with those. One size, again, does not fit all. So again, there are lots of people help. That is what the essence of care management does. You can see this little, you probably can't see it up close here, but there's 8 different areas of expertise that folks like us have. So I know it does take a village for this. There are people like Regina that are senior move managers that really know what it takes, and they're not just moving you and just throwing your things in boxes so you end up with a mess on the other end. There are placement services all over the country, and certainly from my preference, you use somebody in the community, doesn't cost you anything, and you're getting their expertise in a neighborhood. So don't go online, and Andrea can't say this, but don't go online and get one of the big companies that go from a list and will give you 30 places and overwhelm you and half aren't appropriate. Because you don't pay, they get commissioned by the facility, so it's a mess. So call a local person first. It really is beneficial. There are elder law attorneys if you need Medi-Cal planning and long-term care because you can't afford the issues. These are essential to have, and as well as estate planning and advanced directives and those kinds of things. And again, there are many, many others. And last but not least, why go to another real estate agent when you have somebody that's a senior real estate agent? Well, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I can tell you a horror story, but I only have 5 minutes on, because I didn't understand what conservative meant and the difference. So, in closing, it wasn't raining when Noah built his ark. Plan ahead. And the question, should I stay or should I go? Maybe and maybe not. Maybe now and maybe later. So I leave you with that.
Thanks. I love your analogy of the iceberg, because we deal with a lot of very loving and supportive families, and then at the tip of the iceberg, I guess sometimes when there's a crisis, you never realize you had a dysfunctional family and they become dysfunctional. So, so have a professional holding your hand through all of that. Next, I want to introduce to you Andrea Daniels. You guys already know all about her and what she does, so we'll just skip on to the Sorry. to us with 7 years of experience in placing seniors in just the right senior community. She is a licensed assisted living administrator and is also a speaker for Alzheimer's Association. She is dedicated to helping active older adults thrive in an environment that is best for them. And I'm very proud of her because she's a new Longhorn mom. So
Yeah.
look at Lauren. She was this.
I feel like I should sing and dance since Bunni took my presentation. Okay, so I am going to review some stuff again because if it's good information, maybe you should hear it more than once. But before I start, I just want to thank Jennifer and Michelle for inviting me. Okay, this is current. Hang on one second. And I also want to introduce Stacy Brooks, who started Heartlight in 1997 when she was 10. And I've been doing this for 7 years, and I love what I do, and I'm excited to do it. And as Bunni said, which I'm going to say that a lot, we are a free service. So we are here for you to guide you through the process of finding independent living or assisted living or, and I'm going to go through that. And we do get paid by the places. So having a network of contracted assisted living communities is what we bring to the table because we know who does what and who does it the best. Okay, so when we start with a client, we do an intake. So we're saying, hi, thanks for calling Heartlight. Why are you calling? And they go through the many reasons. Can you hear me if I just talk like this?
It's better with the mic. You can take it out.
I didn't practice with a microphone. All right, let me try this way. Okay, so we're doing the intake. Why are you calling me? People don't just call me. And usually they're calling me because there's some sort of a crisis. Sometimes there isn't, and those are the good calls. Sometimes people move because there's just too much house. It's big. You hate your gardener. You hate your electric bill. You spend all day looking for things. I know my parents. I called my dad. I said, "What'd you do today?" He said, "I looked for my glasses all day." Also, the isolation is a real issue. 33% of seniors are chronically lonely. And that is because 33% of seniors live alone. And older women are 45% more likely to live alone. We're pack animals. Human beings belong with other human beings. Whether you're social or antisocial, on a cellular level, you should be with others. Okay, people do want to move. I know that sounds weird, right? Why would I want to go to assisted living or independent living when I've lived in this house for 50 years? But my friend Pamela, who's 84, she lives in one of those gorgeous condos Bunni was talking about with the valet. I mean, it's like the nicest place I've ever been to. And she wants to move because she's tired of putting together her social life. She doesn't want to sit and call a friend and figure out the play they're going to go to and how they're going to get there and how's it going to work and it's dark out. And so she wants to just be able to go downstairs and have lunch with friends and play bridge. So she is moving, and we found the best place for her. Safety is, of course, the primary reason why people move. It's just not safe. I always say stairs can be tricky and bathrooms can be fatal because, as you know, people are falling, and falls happen most frequently at home. And falls are not a normal part of aging. It's a weird thing where all of a sudden we see, once you fall again. And falling is fatal a lot of the time. I know Bunni probably has statistics on that. She'll come back and tell you. But safety is a big reason. And fall risks are really one of the main reasons people call me. My mom keeps falling, my husband keeps falling, and a lot of times they are left at home for many hours. And living in assisted living, you've got people checking on you, you've got pull cords. If you don't show up for breakfast, people are like, "Where's Susie?" And there's that added supervision. Safety is also a huge concern with medication management. Screwing up your medications will screw up your life. And 1.3 million people are injured every year because of medication errors. And the most common drugs that could get screwed up are for diabetes and heart disease. So if you have those, be very, very careful. And a lot of people are taking a dozen medications a day, 2 or 3 times a day, or eye drops or patches, and it's complicated. And if you can't comply with doctor's orders, you're really putting yourself at risk. And when you move to assisted living, they have nurses on site that are gonna manage your meds and give them to you. And they'll even order them. You don't have to go to CVS. It's like, your whole life can open up. Driving. No one's talked about driving that much yet. Okay, driving is definitely an issue. So my dad just got a new car because, as my mom puts it, he bumps into things. That's called a car accident. So we got a new car that has more bells and whistles that will tell him when he's not driving. I'm like, okay. And then my sister says, no, don't do the driving thing because then I'll have to drive him. So, right, it'll be my mom, really. But at some point, when they can't drive, they will definitely be looking at assisted living because it gives you more independence. People think, oh, I don't want to go to assisted living because it's going to shrink my life. I'm not going to have anything to do. It's going to make your life bigger because now you can get to places. Now there's activities and socialization and bingo and cards. Not always just bingo. There's this one place that has a whole thing called Did They Get It Right? Where they look at different lawsuits and what the jury decided, and they go back and they really have this really incredible discussion. There's always lectures on politics and things like that, but I like the places that add something a little more unique. Okay, so driving, yes. Don't drive at night. Don't drive if your family and your friends do not think you should be driving, stop driving. Okay, safety, cognitive issues. Okay, so there's a lot of information out there about Alzheimer's and dementia and mild cognitive impairment. So if you have a natural aging process, you're still going to get forgetful because your brain is still older. And that might mean that you're forgetting to turn off the stove. But if you do have, the safety at home is you're also vulnerable for fraud and break-ins. But if you do have dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or one of the other dozens and dozens of other types of dementia, you could be wandering, you could be screwing up your medications, you could be not remembering how to get home if you're out, you could forget to do a million other things, and it's very, very unsafe at home. Now let's say you don't have a memory issue and you just maybe have had a stroke, a light stroke, and you just can't get in and out of the bathtub, or you need help getting dressed, or maybe, all those babies, you have some incontinence issues. Care at home is available, but sometimes it might not be within your budget. And if you have a 24-hour caregiver at home, you're going to be spending $10,000 a month or more. Also, let's say you can afford it, but you don't want to be just home with your one caregiver day after day. So these are definitely wonderful reasons to move. And I think, and experts agree, that living in a community setting, I don't call them facilities, I call them communities. It's a healthier lifestyle. You're getting nutritious food. There's water everywhere. There's exercise classes every day. There's socialization. All of this is going to really have people thrive, not just live. And you will live longer and healthier. So that is kind of just an overview. Now there's a lot of different types of places, and I like when people say, well, where should I go? What's the best place? I don't know. What do you need? So the first type of place is independent living. You're out and about, you want all the bells and whistles, you just want to be social, you don't need any caregivers. There are not caregivers that are hired and trained by the places if you're in independent living. It's just that social model where there's the dining room, etc., transportation. But there's not a lot of independent living places in Los Angeles. They're predominantly assisted living, where there are independent people living in assisted living. But assisted living is wonderful because you do have the staff that is screened and trained and vetted and fingerprinted, and there's supervision over those people every day. So if you do get dizzy and you need somebody to help you while you're taking a bath, or just stand by, make sure you don't fall, at least you know that that person has been thoroughly vetted. Also with assisted living, again, you have somebody to manage your medications. And a lot of assisted livings are licensed to do bedridden, hospice, any type of care. It used to be, okay, so let me back up. All assisted livings are licensed by the state of California, the Department of Social Services. And not all assisted livings are licensed the same. Some allow dementia, some do not. Some allow colostomy bags, some do not. Some places won't even be fire available, so you can't even have a wheelchair. So that's why it's good to talk to a professional that knows which places go with your particular needs. So there's the large places with the bells and whistles and the transportation and the goodies. Now, let's say let's say you have had a stroke, or you have Parkinson's, or moderate Alzheimer's, and you need a lot of care. You can't do the bathing, you can't get dressed, you really need help with a lot of activities of daily living. That would be maybe more appropriate for a small boarding care home. There are 5 boarding care homes within a 1-mile radius of where we're sitting now. And these are residential homes, like where we live, where there's 6 residents typically, and 2 or 3 caregivers. So you're getting a very high ratio, higher of caregivers than a nursing home. But there are no nurses typically, so we have to look at what do you need. But these boarding care homes are all over, and again, they're so wonderful if you need a lot of care. And then of course there's nursing, which I don't do. They are a whole different animal. Go to Medicare.gov and they'll have the ratings if you need a nursing home. But we get a lot of calls that say, oh, I need a nursing home. Why do you need a nursing home? Well, my mom can't walk. Okay, that does not qualify you for nursing care. Well, she needs help bathing and dressing. Doesn't qualify you for nursing care. Well, she has late-stage dementia. Nope. So to get to the level of needing a nursing home, you practically need a ventilator and 2 or 3 other things. It's very hard to stay in a nursing home long-term. And that's the only way to get to have Medicare or Medi-Cal pay for it. So a lot of times the people that think they should be in a nursing home can't get to a nursing home. So that's why the boarding care option is so wonderful. It's also so much nicer because it's residential and you get the food you want and the medication. And it's the same caregivers all the time. And it's your home. Wherever you live is where your home is. So, it's just a nice family. Now, all of these places can do, not all of them, but there's something called memory care. So there's the Silverados of the world that specifically work with people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And there's programs within large assisted livings that specifically work with this population. And what their whole thing is programming. They're going to keep the brain occupied throughout the day to slow the progression of dementia. And that's really what we want. We don't want to just race through it. We want to keep our moms or dads or spouses as much of their old self as possible. So memory care is something else that we do. So what's the best place? I don't know. How much money do you have? So budget is probably the first thing we talk to about families when we know why they want to move. And we've talked about maybe we're looking at a big place or a small place. Okay, so what's the budget? Because I don't want to show somebody this place if they only have this much money, because that's mean. I don't want to be, I'm not here to be mean, I'm trying to be nice and be helpful and free. Who wouldn't want to call me? So, I thought your table was like, okay, so nationally, the average price for assisted living is $3,000 a month. That's the lowest end for a private room, for a private studio in Los Angeles. Because we're in LA, things cost more. So you're looking at $3,000 and you can pay up to $12,000 a month if you can and you choose to. So we're really looking, and again, it depends. What care needs do you have? Where do you need to be? What are you looking for, a large place or a small place? Then the care needs, we've talked about that. So if you need a lot of care, typically you're going to pay for that. And geography, where do you want to be? Do you need a view? Do you want to be by the doctor? We take all of this into consideration. Now, the person who wanted to live downtown by the music, that was your mother, that's great, but you could also live by the beach and have transportation there. So we're going to kind of think creatively because we know all the resources. So if you need a lot of care, but you're social, you might be in a boarding care, but we might add in some extra people to help you socialize, or make sure you're signed up for classes where transportation is, or vice versa. You're super social, you want the bells and whistles, but you can't do anything and you might need a high level of care. Great, we'll bring in a caregiver or we'll figure it out. So I love that, like a tough placement is kind of fun because you're really getting into what's important to the family and you're putting yourself in those shoes. And sometimes I have my best ideas at 4 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, that is, because we really have to think creatively, because we're all people. Geography, oh, yes, the average age is 85. Some places the average age is 81. And what Bunny said is so correct. People walk in and they say, oh, I don't want to live here. I don't want to live with old people. And again, the person is usually 92 who says that. But that's the first thing we hear from families. And the last thing we hear is, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I do this sooner? Because you can't imagine that it could be better because it's assisted living. But forget the name. It's a home, and it's a wonderful, wonderful option. And we are here for you. Again, we're a free service. And I just want to thank you girls again for having us. Women, excuse me.
Thanks. This is awesome. Oops,
Oh,
careful.
oh.
Still young.
It's about that cognitive falling thing. Okay, so our final panelist, Regina Lark, is the owner of A Clear Path, a professional organizing, downsizing, decluttering company. She works with boomers and seniors to clear the path of unwanted clutter, and Regina and her team of ninja organizers and experts turn chaos into clarity. And I just want to say, before Regina takes the mic, that this also applies to households that don't have seniors. I could use a little decluttering in my house, but and my sister passed away very unexpectedly recently at the age of 57, and she'd been in her house for 16 years. And my sisters and I, she lives in Texas, which I'm from, if you hadn't figured that out already. One of my sisters lives in Kansas, and the other one lives in Fort Worth, and I'm here, and my brother's there in a house and needed help. So, we travel as much as we can to help him declutter and figure out his life because he's inheriting the house from her. But to have experts like these panels today, and when Regina finishes sharing her wisdom with us, they'll all be up for you to ask questions. But you never know when you're going to need a specialist like this or a resource. And so, as Andrea said, just remember, please, to call on us. So, Regina, come on up. Regina Lark.
Could we turn this off or just hide? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am really, really excited to be here. I have such a high regard for Jennifer Goldstein and her team, and when she asked me to be part of today's presentation with Andrea and Bunni, who I've known for years. In fact, I've been in business 10 years this past Monday, and I met them right when I started. So thank you. Thank you very much for letting me be here. I do a lot of speaking, and I always like to start my speaking with a song. So join in when you know all the words. You will figure it out. Oh, the clutter inside is frightful, and my dear, it's not delightful. So let's give it the old heave-ho. Let it go, let it go, let it go. I knew you would know the words. Thank you very much. So I am here to talk about the topic of how to sing and dance for your presentation. Talking about letting go. And I looked again at the marketing piece that Jennifer did, and it was, Regina's gonna, what do you do with all your stuff, right? So when I speak, I only have one rule, and that's the rule. What you hear here, let it remain here. Can I get a hear here?
Here, here.
Okay, because I say that because a lot of people have a lot of big feelings about their stuff. Okay. So, Randy has some big feelings about her stuff. We have a lot of stuff. So what we hear here is not going to go outside of the room. But with a show of hands, is there anybody in the room that feels that they have a lot of stuff? Oh, you have 2 hands raised.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the dancing intermission for the. We have a lot of stuff, and you're the ones who are identifying the word a lot. Because we all have stuff. Some of us have a little bit of stuff, some of us have too much stuff, some of us have a lot of stuff. I'm going to tell a silly little story about myself. I started my business 10 years ago, like I said, and 2 years into owning a clear path, I was called by the LA Times. And the LA Times was interviewing me about people's stuff. And I gave the Times reporter a quote. And I said, the average household has about 300,000 things. It just rolled off my tongue. And 2 years or 3 years later, I get a call from the Wall Street Journal. And they said, we found your quote in the LA Times, 300,000 things. Where did you get that number? Now it's become a family joke. I said, hold on a moment. And I swung around to my very organized bookcase. I don't have a lot of books. And I looked and I thought, which book did I read this in? And I could not find it. Now I have a PhD in history and we are all about citing our sources. And I couldn't find it, and there's a book that was published in 2012 by UCLA, and it's called Family Life in the 21st Century. I could have sworn I found the quote from there. And so I told the Wall Street Times, I don't know. I said, I know, I didn't make it up. Twice, sometimes 5 times a year since then, I get an email that said, where's your quote of 300,000 things? So I have a template letter, I have a form letter. It is with great disappointment that I tell you that I don't know where the hell I got the quote. And I've had organizer friends around the country do informal surveys. I said, just start counting your stuff. Between paper clips and Post-it notes and underwear and socks and bras and belts and shoes and napkins and table linen and the trays that your grandmothers brought from the old country, we could easily come up with an enormous list of stuff. So go home and count, and then stop after a certain number that really... Okay, so here's what I know about our stuff. I know that we hold on to stuff for usually 1 of 3 reasons. One reason is we have stuff that we think we're going to use someday. Anybody here? No kidding. What is your name, please?
Jim,
Jim, what are you holding on to? One thing that you think you're going to use someday.
too many to even
Give me one.
enumerate. Tool.
Tools.
Yeah.
And are you able to identify the name, date, time, and place where you will use any of these tools?
Of course not.
Okay. Now, Jim is holding on to tools. Who's got another one thing that they're holding on to that they know they're going to need someday? Come on, tell on yourself. Yes.
I held on to old cards that people send me.
Okay.
Cards.
That's different. You're not holding on to it because you think you're going to need it someday.
No.
That's the stuff we're holding on to the past.
Okay.
I'm going to get to you. One thing we're holding on to, we think we may need someday. Yes.
Clothes I don't fit into.
Clothes that don't fit into. Okay. Here's the thing about the things that we're holding on to that we think we may need someday. We can't identify what someday has to look like. What does someday have to look like in order for this thing to be used? That's one unknown variable. Then there's the other unknown variable, and that is this. If I let it go, and someday arrives, and I don't have it now, are you with me? Something not good is going to happen. But we don't know what that is either. so we hold on. 2 unknown variables. I don't know what's going to happen in order for me to use this. And if I don't have it and someday comes, something not good is going to happen. To me, that's fear. Fear of letting go of the future. Do you see what the future is? I may need it someday. Then we've got Iva's cards. Anybody else have greeting cards?
Millions.
Here's Regina. This is the world according to Regina when it comes to greeting cards. Greeting cards were written to commemorate a particular moment in time. I don't know if the sender thinks we're going to be holding on to it for the rest of our natural life. My birthday is Sunday. I'm going to be 60.
Hey.
And I'm getting birthday cards. And I love getting birthday cards. And my birthday cards, I have a table and that, we display our cards. And after a couple of weeks, I'm going to read through them. Oh, I am great. I am great. I am great. I am such a nice person. Yeah, they just wrote it. There's proof. But I already know it, so I don't need the proof. No, I'm just kidding. I tend to let go of probably 90% of the cards. Are you out of here, Gertis? I tend to let go of about 95% of the cards because I'm just very grateful for the sender. But my parents, at 82 and at 87, I get a card from them every year. And in my saved card stack, now I do save some cards, and over many years, almost 60, my card stack is about maybe 2 inches tall. They fit into a giant binder clip. The back of the stack are my parents' cards from last year. And at the end of this 2-week cycle of my birthday, I'm going to remove the cards from last year and replace my parents' cards from this year. Because what I need in terms of saving is a card from my mom that says, "Happy birthday, Regina, I love you, love Mom," in her handwriting. And I've decided, for me, I only need 1 card. I don't need many. There was one year, actually, she gave me the same card 2 years in a row. What do you do with that? So we hold on to stuff from the past because of who gave it to us, because of how it got there. Sometimes when I'm working with a client and we're sitting on the floor and we're pulling stuff out from under the bed, sometimes I'm pulling out a box of trauma. Sometimes I'm pulling out a box of wonderful, lovely memories. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why we hold on to the past, but we tend to hold on to the past because there's a fear of letting go. As one of my clients said, he had this huge stack of concert t-shirts. Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. He even had a Bing Crosby. And I said, "Well, what do you want to do with all the shirts?" And he goes, "If I let them go, how will anybody know I used to be cool?" Well, you're pretty cool right now. But the stuff from the past, from where I sit, the stuff from the past, we believe, tells stories about us. We think that we are those stories. So I mentioned I have a doctorate in history, and I had, when I was in graduate school, I had the best doctoral library money could buy. And I had 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases, alphabetized by genre, of course. And I was, the books were brought in for 2 reasons. One was to finish my degree, and the other one was to teach my history courses. I was a professor of history and women's studies. Teach my history courses, finish the work on the degree, and one of the added benefits of having such a great library is that graduate students at USC could call me and they say, "Do you have this?" And I could spin around in my chair, pull the book out and say, "Yes, I'll bring it to campus tomorrow." I loved my bookcase. I loved being a valuable resource, and I loved having the books I needed to dissertate and to teach. There came a time when my degree was completed and I was no longer teaching and I was working as an administrator. And I still love my library. I mean, it's still a great library. But then there came the moment where I had to personally downsize. I was leaving a long-term relationship, I was moving out of the house, my home office was a bedroom-size office, and I was moving into a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment. And there's two things I know about Regina. One, I do not like to be inconvenienced. And so if I brought 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases to a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment, I would certainly be inconvenienced. And 2, I don't like to pay for storage. I'm not going to ask anybody here if they're paying for storage because you probably really hate that you do that. So I had to have a come to Regina meeting about the books. And I stood there and I said, Regina, if you no longer have these books in your life, who are you? Because you could walk into my office and you would say, oh, a really smart person lives here. Because that's the story I told myself about what you thought about me. Does that make sense? Yeah. We have stuff that people relate to us about that stuff. So I put an ad on Craigslist. A smart young graduate student from Cal State Long Beach came over. We filled her car till the tires were flat. I kept 5 books, my 2-volume on Eleanor Roosevelt, love her, and 3 others. And I still have those books. I became good friends with my library card. I'm still smart. No one can take my degrees away. And one of the things that I found very valuable about having such an extensive library is that I was a resource. And when I was downsizing those books, I thought, Regina, you could be a resource in another way. So if you go to my website right now, there's a link that's on recycling and donating. Everything under the sun, women's business attire, kids' DVDs, wine corks. Who knew that people were collecting wine corks? Actually, we just worked with somebody with a hoarding disorder and really probably about 75 boxes of wine corks. But apparently he was a very famous bartender in Hollywood back in the day. And you never know. And so, holding on to the future, things we may need someday, there's fear of letting go of the future, and then holding on to the past, fear of letting go of the past. And if you've got a lot of clutter, and you're afraid to let go of the future, and you're afraid to let go of the past, what I'm thinking is that your present, where you are standing right now, is pretty crowded and cluttery. And the fear of letting go of the future and the fear of letting go of the past is informing how you're standing right now. So how do you let it go? You come to an understanding of what is it that you need in your life to thrive right now. I encourage a lot of people to hold on to the things that are relevant to right this moment. There are all kinds of ways you can preserve the memories. You can take pictures, but then you run out of space on your You can take pictures and download. My sister and I, there's 4 Lark girls. 2 of us are like me and 1 of us needs us. And my older sister and I are very, very organized, very linear, and we hung out with my mom one day and we went through all of her pictures. She had as many pictures as you all have. And we heard her stories, it was great fun, we laughed a lot, and then we tossed a lot. We tossed all the pictures that say, where the hell is this rock? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why we have pictures of all these trees. We threw those away. And then we kept a whole bunch, and then my sister and I brought the photos back to my place, and we set out 3 huge bowls. And my parents have been divorced since I was very young. And so one bowl was Dad and his people, one bowl was Mom and her people, and the other bowl was our family unit and growing up. So it was the Larks and their people. And we just kept flipping pictures into the different bowls. We put the pictures in giant gallon-sized baggies, and we took them to Costco, and they made discs, DVDs. And we've given them, everyone has gotten a DVD in the family, and then we recycled all the pictures. We dumped them in the recycle bin. You can do that with photos. Trust me, nothing bad's gonna happen to you. My time is up. 5 minutes. Do you have any? Oh, we're going to do question and answer later. What else can I tell you? Anybody have a clutter challenge they would love to get an answer to from the experts? Otherwise, you're going to have to hear another song. Yeah. What do you got?
I got a lot of it. I pick one.
I can't. I don't know you. Well, any question? Any issue, Steve?
T-shirts,
What about T-shirts?
tons of them. I keep getting more and more, and I don't throw any of them away, so they're taking
Okay.
over.
Here's one thing I've learned about clutter. It doesn't grow magically in your place. It doesn't breed like rabbits.
It does.
Cl-
Sorry.
Except for Steve's clutter. Clutter actually happens before you bring it in your front door. So here's a tip. You're at the store. It's in your hand. You ask, the very first question you ask yourself is, where the hell is it gonna live in my home? If you say, I don't know, put it down. No clutter. I look at clothing, I have 2 feet, I have 1 body. We wear, here's a fun statistic, I could probably cite where I found it. We wear 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time. We can document that. 80% of our clothes, we have 20% of our clothes are worn 80% of the time. There's a famous organizer out there named Peter Walsh, and he talks about the bottom third. And if you're thinking of doing any type of declutter project, one quick and dirty way to look at this is open a drawer, take out the top 2/3, put it to the side. The bottom third you haven't looked at or worn or used for forever. The bottom third, let go of the bottom third. If you have a lot of clutter and you need to figure out how to downsize because you're going to hang out with Andrea and look at amazing places to live, and you're going to work with Jennifer and her team to help you get the best value for your space, and decluttering is a big part of this. I know that a lot of folks don't want to, they're afraid to sell because they're living in fear of letting go of the future, and they're in fear of letting go of the past. And you can't, and folks can't possibly understand how to move this forward. So if you have a lot of clutter, don't do it alone. Grab your best gal pal and then reciprocate, because she probably has clutter too. Eat pizza, drink some wine. You want someone to do this work for you that's going to be very objective and say, you know, honey, that never looked good on you anyway. Yeah. How about paper?
Bank statements, information, phone books.
Okay. Phone books?
Oh.
What is,
No, I mean,
phone books?
business cards, bank statements, yeah.
Okay, so paper is a big issue. We are drowning in paper, and so many ways that I can answer that. One, we don't need to keep our bank statements. You don't need to. I walk into homes and there are bags filled with unopened bank statements. Stop it. We don't need to keep our utility statements. We don't need to keep statements. I would imagine that many of you have some internet savvy. And I really encourage you to start trusting. I know, what do you trust? I mean, I get that we are compromised in a lot of ways, or we can be. I am, unfortunately, an incredibly trusting person, and I know that I just feel that whatever I'm putting online and whatever I'm accessing online, I just trust that it works out. And if you have anyway, we could talk about paper, but don't sit and shred, box stuff up, and take them to a shred event. Understand that you don't need to keep as much paper. I bet some of you have file cabinets that are just packed with paper. A metal file cabinet, it's packed with paper. And paper is a tedious, time-consuming, mind-numbing, and boring task. I get that. Any of your declutter projects, put it on the calendar, grab someone to help you, find an organizer like me, but we just don't have to keep as much paper. And if you go to my website, I've got cards back there if you go to my website, you'll find a link and I can send you a document called Paper, What to Keep and for How Long. And I culled it through IRS and employment or attorneys who helped me compile this list. And it's a good way to think about it. But again, everything that comes through your front door becomes clutter if you don't know where to put it. So open your mail in one place next to a recycle bin. Have a place for things that you're going to act on, and then recycle the rest away. I could do a 3.5-hour workshop on paper. Hell, I could do a 3.5-hour workshop on pretty much any topic related to this, but
Not today.
I'm not going to do it today. Thank you very much.